Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And our guest now is Rick Ferrante of Home Care Services. Welcome. It's good to see you again.
Welcome back.
Good to see both of you. Thank you very much for having me.
And what are we talking about today, other than home care services?
Other than home care services.
Yes.
Well, there's one thing that's always true to my heart here in terms of, and I'd like to be able to get into the Alzheimer's Association as we have talked in the past. Mm-hmm. But I did want to give you guys a little bit of scenario, and I want to get your thoughts on this. And, in terms of your audience to thinking about along these lines. We deal with a lot of situations, and Dr. Dorio, you might be able to kind of empathize with this or see this happening, where we have a lot of families. Okay, you have seniors that maybe aren't quite as active as you are when we were watching the video of you and your exercising.
Our exercise.
Yeah, but it's slowing down a little bit and having a little bit of trouble. And then getting into a scenario such as maybe a doctor's appointment, where normally a lot of times they'll maybe go in with their son or their daughter and go into that doctor's appointment because they're having a little bit of trouble maybe communicating to the doctor what are the things that are happening to them, at home and then during their regular life. And then also having a little bit trouble registering all the things that the doctor's telling them to do, right? So it would be it medication, be it exercise, be it nutrition, depending on whatever the situation is. And if you don't have that other person there in the room, a lot of times it's very difficult for the senior to kind of register everything. And then the next time they come in, the doctor doesn't have those eyes and ears of what's going on there in the house. And that communication...
Or lack of.
I guess that's what it is.
Lack of.
Hey, if that doctor could actually get in the car with them and go to their house and see what's going on, everything would be perfect.
You mean do a house call?
Oh my gosh. How about that?
That's the most valuable thing,
right?
that a patient can have is a doctor who goes to the home, because they see what an outside doctor doesn't see.
Absolutely. Now, let's take one of the things that son or daughter is doing is helping in that communication, right? So let's say they're in the doctor's office and then they leave the door, right? First thing that daughter or son is doing, sitting in the car saying, remember, doctor said to do this, doctor said to do that. They've also said, remember you had these dizzy things, let's tell the doctor that, kind of just helping that whole thing facilitate. Well, here's the problem, guys. That son or daughter has a job. That son or daughter has a life. That son or daughter has a family. That son or daughter's got their own kids that need to be picked up and dropped off. And,
that's right.
How are they going to navigate and deal with this situation where we talk about the sandwich and the double-decker sandwich generation and the whole thing. Well, how do you actually physically, practically handle that? So what we've been looking at and doing, because we deal with this, we're immersed in this all the time. As an agency, we're kind of in there and dealing with this situation, is oftentimes people don't necessarily need full-time caregiver. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just need somebody to kind of stand in the place of that son or daughter. Somebody that's trusted, that can help facilitate, liaison, communicate back and forth, just to kind of help manage that relationship. Be some of those eyes and ears for the doctor, help communicate and make sure what the doctor instructed is actually happening in the home, right? Kind of helping the doctor prevent those phone calls later on going from the daughter says, Doctor, you had an appointment with my mom, and she says everything was fine, and I know there must be something else here. And so now you're on the phone with that daughter an hour trying to figure out how to do that. And all of this can, what we do is we say, okay, we can kind of get in the place of that son or daughter and assist in that scenario. And it's both in the medical arena, but it's also just in general household management. You need to get a plumber, right? Or you need to get organized and pay your bills. We had one gal who very sharp. This is somebody that was in the business world for years and years, very sharp, but she's just slowing down a little bit, had a little trouble dementia-wise, but not in this situation, wants to go to assisted living at this point. But she forgot to pay this bill and then paid this one twice. And, she knows what's going on. She just needs a little bit of help in there to kind of keep it all organized.
I've done that myself.
Well, so have I. Maybe it's a bad example, but you get the idea.
Oh, and it's so frustrating.
Exactly.
Oh.
So what we've done is we've said, look, we can provide a service that, you can kind of come in and step in to do that. And it's not the kind of service, a thing that says, look, we'll just come in and take over for hours and hours. It's an as-you-go thing. You don't go to a doctor's appointment every day, so you only need it when you need it. And rather than, you still may need a caregiver. Somebody may need a caregiver. That's fine. But this is kind of like skill set, another step above that, and it's just on an as-needed basis. So I don't know, Dr. Dory, what do you think? Is that a scenario in terms of your practice that you have seen where somebody might need a little bit of help in terms of instruction and communication back and forth?
See that all the time. Every day I realize that the patients, their caregivers, need an advocate. And whether that advocate comes from the relative or from someone else is important. Our seniors, as you get older, your realization of what you can do doesn't change. You think you can still do everything. But the reality is that we have to fear as a doctor and as family members that are they taking their medication correctly? Mm-hmm. Are they caring for their home correctly? Their own personal hygiene? Their pets, are they doing that? Are they eating well enough? Do they have food in the refrigerator? All these things occur, and family members sometimes don't realize that. And of course, the first thing I do on a house call is I look for pets. I look around where they're fed to make sure that, are they being fed? And I open the refrigerator, and some people ask me, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? But no, I'm checking to see that you have, nutrition there to be able to sustain yourself, over the next day or two or three. And many a times, as they're getting older, they just can't vacuum the floor. They can't dust. They can't take out the garbage. They can't sweep the kitchen. And then sometimes it gets to where they can't cook for themselves. They can nuke things and microwave it, but actually to get behind the stove, turn the gas on, and do all that and fix things, it's a little bit more difficult. So our awareness, to bring somebody in is a necessity now.
Yeah, and sometimes, not everything is the same. There's no such thing as a cookie cutter solution to all these things. Mm-hmm. There's, the dynamics of the family, whether or not there's a family member there or not, where they live, the senior themselves. There's a scale here, and it can be years difference from here to there, right? So you say, look, yes, there are certain times that we need, all the way to out of that house and into assisted living. But there's so much before that. Mm-hmm. And there could be light housekeeping, cooking, etc. And certainly something we do. We can provide a caregiver, etc. But there's a lot of times that it's not necessarily just a caregiver they need. They need that kind of, not as much constant time, but somebody with the ability to kind of look in and really take the place of that daughter who will look at those bills and say, wait a minute, are you even doing this? And is this a bill that you should even have here? And you know what, like you said with the groceries, it's not just putting them in there. What is in there? And what did the doctor say you should be having? And what is it, how was all this? And it's a more of a whole assessment kind of management and household management. And it's a lot of times it's on a as needed basis. Mm-hmm. You don't need somebody in there 8 hours. You need somebody to go in and stop in and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And check in.
The family doesn't realize what's going on. The greatest problems that I see is related to their medicines. It's polypharmacy out there. Every time a patient goes in, they're getting another drug. So you go to their home and they got all these containers there, and you can tell that they can't be taking this correctly. And having awareness on how they're taking it, most families don't delve into it. Mom, did you take your medicine? Oh, that's good. I'm glad you did. But that's all they hear. They don't realize that they're missing medication. And then all of a sudden their blood pressure is 220 and they're having bad headaches and they're passing out or having a stroke. They didn't take their medicine.
Right. You see piles of it over here and they didn't take it, or they're combining or something along.
That awareness has to be brought into the home. I bring it in the home as I do house calls. You bring it in the home by bringing bring people in. I mean, families just aren't always aware what's going on with their loved ones because they're oblivious. I mean, they're seeing their mother or father all the time. So they don't see the changing of the gray hair, the wrinkles in their skin all the time because it is happening, but it's just slow-mo molasses. But because we have experience enough to be able to go into the homes and recognize what they're not seeing, it helps them immensely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's on all levels. It's on a medical level, but it's just even just in general household management. And I mean, even on the sense of, if you're dealing with maybe insurance or you're dealing with, hey, do you have a trust and powers of attorney and advance directives? No, well, it's because it's really difficult to do all that. Well, we can go help you figure out the paperwork and get it to them. Do you have what about your just general finances? And some of the things too is where you start and stop. Meaning, we're not a doctor, we're not an attorney, we're not a CPA, we're not a plumber, right? We don't do any of those things. There are very specialist or very skilled and experienced people and professionals in those arenas. But what we do is we look at it and say, okay, where do you need what? Right? And then let's go talk with, okay, this is the scenario here. We need, this is a doctor's call. Let's talk to Dr. Dorio and find out what he says, and then we'll communicate and help you. This one over here, this is something an attorney needs to look at. We need to go and let's go find you a good one locally, that kind of thing. Right. So it's a matter of using resources and using good professional resources and knowing where we start and stop. But it's definitely, and I wish everybody could afford to do this kind of stuff. Not everybody can, but they've got to maybe kind of coalesce family and so on to do it. And then if you can afford to have somebody help you, a lot of times at the end of the day, they're better at it than you, and they can, and the results are better for your whole family.
Ultimately, for me, trying to convince my patients that they are in need of help, and somebody from the outside has to come in and look at everything that's going on and the family and telling them the same thing. Ultimately, it comes down to, if you don't do these things, your quality of life will be in jeopardy because you won't be able to live at home at some point. Right. That's bottom line. So by putting up the support systems around them, I tell my patients, if you don't have this, if you don't have the medic alert type bracelet, if you don't remove some of the factors on your floors that could cause you to fall, if you don't have safety bars in your showers, you could end up being in trouble and not be able to live at home anymore. And that's the threat. That's what I tell them. That's what I dangle above their heads to make sure they understand that they don't do these things, they don't get these supports, taking their medicines and everything else, eating appropriately, they could be done at home. And I can tell you 99%, 100% of my patients want to stay at home.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk to people about, this is like a personal assistant. And the first thing that comes into somebody's mind, Barbara, you might be thinking along these lines of people the same way. They go, well, I'm losing my independence, right? And I'm losing the fact that, and I want to be in my home and I want to be independent. And what you just said, Dr. Dorio, was so spot on. If you don't actually get some help here, even if it's, kind of as you need it, help, then you will ultimately lose that independence because something disastrous is going to happen. What's the number one reason why somebody ends up in assisted living? It's falls in the home, right? So the things you were talking about. So if you were able to kind of just have, kind of nibble at the edges here, just get a little bit of help, and then that actually increases your independence and it keeps you in the home, which I think we all agree is the best solution, is to stay there and stay independent and the kind of life you want to lead, the quality of life.
So often the seniors, though, will say to me and will say to their children, oh, I'm fine. I'm able to do it. I don't need any help. They give that reassurance. No, I'm okay with that. And I know with my mom, who's 94, still living at home, I have to go over there and vacuum because I know she's not going to do it. And my other brothers will dust. And I'll take out the garbage, I'll clean out the refrigerator, and my other brothers will clean up after the cats. and everybody chips in because she can't do it anymore, even though she says that she can.
Yeah.
I can. I got some good kids that do it.
Yeah, now she says that.
But not everybody's in the position where they can do that for their parents, because maybe in their position, their work is, I've got a 3:00 appointment that I'm going to be in trouble here with my boss and my my business if I don't get, and so I can't get over there and do some of those things. And those are the ones that really need the help to have somebody else that they can trust to do it
I'm
as well.
35 miles away, so figure that when I go and help, this is a weekend thing. This is I can't really go over there during a weekday. I have gone over there on a weekday when, she's had a hair appointment, my other brother's out of town. I'll just go down there on a Thursday morning and pick her up and fight the traffic and
a lot of time.
Spend, probably 6 hours or more on the freeway, probably 4 hours on the freeway, 2 hours with her hair, but I'll get that done. But, these are the obligations. But most of the time I find the time to be able to spend it with her so she can have the quality of life that she wants. But
and
it's
that
difficult.
is so important to her.
Right.
She may not show it, but oh my goodness.
Yeah, she shows it. She's
sure
aware.
she does.
She doesn't give us an allowance or anything like that. But she will.
Hey, Mom,
thank
come
you.
on.
It's a big.
Pop it up.
Let's bring it a little here, Mom.
Hey, come
no,
on.
but you're right. I think,
it's
and if you're you do that as a son and daughter would be very, very helpful. Be able to sit there as a son and daughter and have tea and have, coffee and sit there and talk with them. But if you're doing the vacuuming, you're not necessarily talking with them. So it's a good thing, but I think a lot of people are in a position where I want to be that son or daughter, that's the normal son and daughter, and then I want to hire somebody just as needed basis to help them with some of those tasks. And I'm back to being where a normal family is. So it's kind of a combination of everything. It's good stuff.
You just got to figure out which route you're going to take, because it's not easy. If you know that even on weekends, and we don't have young kids at home anymore. So, and I have my responsibilities for my patients on the weekends and even at the hospital, but I know sometimes I'm bogged down, and that just happens. So no, I think that it's you have to see, are you going to be able to find time?
Right.
And that's the hard part. And if you can't, then you got to relegate it to someone else.
Yeah, I think it's something these families have to think about it, have to start having those conversations.
That's
and
right.
start thinking it's tough, because
That's
it's
right.
a tough conversation to have. And it's you want to sort of close your eyes to it, make it go away. And then unfortunately, then it gets to the point where it's not an easy conversation. It's a cliff, right? And now we really got a problem.
Well, that's interesting, because my son and daughter both call at least every other day. Mom, how are you doing? Is there anything you need? And it means the world. It really does, because I know if I was really desperate and needed it, they'd both be here. They would. I mean, they live in Palmdale, but they would be here in a heartbeat. They really would.
It's a combination between family, friends, the senior themselves, and where they can, and if they can, people that they can trust in a professional environment that can assist wherever they need at whatever stage they're at. There's a lot of stages, and a lot of these stages go for a long time. This isn't like a snap of the fingers kind of thing.
That's true. Well, we need to take a break, and we'll come back in a few minutes. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And we're speaking with Rick Ferrante of Home Care Services, and we need to talk about a very, very important subject.
Yes, obviously, my business in business, we're surrounded and immersed in the area of people that are suffering from Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. And as a result, you just look at it and say there's something that needs to be done here. For all the reasons, and we've gone through it in the past, that we as a community, a nation, country, we need to address this. And then the best way to do that is through organizations like the Alzheimer's Association, who do education, support, fund research to find a cure, which is ultimately where, that would be the thing to really address and solve this problem. problem. But in the meantime, we've got to support the people and the families that are affected with this disease, and the people themselves that are affected, and have all those other resources out there. The Alzheimer's Association does a great job of that, but it needs funding. And the Walk to End Alzheimer's here in Santa Clarita is our local way of doing that, showing that support. It's on October 8th. And it's at Bridgeport Park. This is Santa Clarita's Walk to End Alzheimer's, and from the Alzheimer's Association. It's in the morning there on October 8th up until about lunchtime. We're going to have a great fun day out there on your basic walk. And what we're looking for is several things. One, certainly sponsors, any business, anybody that wants to get involved and show how they really support the community through this kind of support for the Alzheimer's Association, looking for sponsors and vendors. We're also looking for volunteers. If anybody wants to volunteer to help on any level. And then we're looking for teams. We're looking for teams which are the ones that are actually going out there and fundraising and then doing the walk. On May 25th, we're going to have an event for team captains. Wednesday, May 25th in the evening, 6:30 in the evening till about 8. We're going to have an event that brings in the team captains that have signed up for the walk. Have them get together, tips, ideas. We're going to have a little presentation, some instructions to help, some food, have some fun, because part of this is it's a lot of fun too. And I really want to see you guys out there as a team too, because it's a lot of fun. So you're working, Barbara, at your the exercises, and now we'll see you walk. Once you get in the front. And you're like a pace car out in the front of everybody, and setting the pace for the walk.
And this is on a Saturday, isn't it?
This is on Saturday, October 8th, is the walk.
And when does it start?
And the registration starts at 7:30 in the morning, and it goes up until about 9:30. So there's, you can get some food. Everybody gets their T-shirts and, kind of mingles and that kind of thing. So there's time to register. 9:30 is the opening ceremony. 10 o'clock. Gun goes off and we walk, and then come back. There'll be some food and things like that, raffles and those kinds of things, and then I call it a day. And it's
we have to do that, Gene.
You got to come out.
It's okay if I run it.
Okay.
Not to sound obnoxious.
There he goes. Boom.
No, I won't run it. I walk.
Okay.
Well, you can lap us, but I'd love to have people out there. Give us a call, and I can tell you if you want to support, come out as a volunteer, to do a team, sponsor, whatever. We really want the community support on this. There's a lot of people out there already that are supporting, and we want to, emphasize that we want to bring this community together to address this cause.
That's the Walk to End Alzheimer's.
Right.
Yeah, we need to get there.
We need to get there,
don't we, Rick?
We've talked about it, and it's frustrating. We're going to.
Yeah.
Got to have some faith in that.
I sometimes will go by your office and see you in there lecturing your staff, and you're always training them for the things that our senior needs, and I'm in great admiration of how you stay up to date with everything our seniors need to know about trying to stay in their home.
Appreciate it. It's a one of those things that not just me but the staff and so on. It's kind of a calling, and we really enjoy it. It's an enjoyable thing, and if you come out that day and come to our other events along that lines, you'll enjoy it too. It's fun to do that support.
And your office number is 1-800-808-4777.
Right, 800-808-4777, and www.homecaresantaclarita.com. Just give us a call, and we can kind of go through it and help wherever help you can supply. Great. And if you have any other questions in terms of our services as well, anytime.
Let's keep those seniors in their homes.
Let's do it.
That's important, Rick. Thanks for being on the show again. Yes. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me
so much. We are sponsored by Advanced Ideology and SCV in Home Care. Listen to us next week on the Senior Hour. Now go and enhance your quality of life.